Alright, so we get started here. So today we're going to be going over setting up autonomic products, mainly the amplifier, but we'll talk about the MMS as well, and the new favorite extension, and how those can be used to add value to your products, your projects. So we'll start with the amplifier. Or actually, yeah, so we're going to start with the amplifier, but before we do that, we're going to look at the actual configuration on the web UI. And can you guys just let me know you hear me all right, and if the video is good, if you can see everything clearly. Just want to make sure. All right. To start off setting this up, what you're going to want to do is configure the MMS and the amplifier ahead of time before you add it into Crestron Home. So that would entail adding your streaming credentials and enabling the services that you want to use. I would generally recommend that you disable services that you're not going to use. That way they don't populate into Crestron Home and kind of bloat the interface with services that are not going to be used. You can disable services once they're already imported into Crestron, and I'll show you how to do that. So beyond the basic MMS configuration, setting up your IP address, making sure the firmware is up to date, the next thing you're going to want to do is create your system. Now, if this is a fresh out-of-the-box system, everything is going to be on System ID 1, and it should all populate here automatically. So today we're basically going to be setting up a system for our office here. We have an MMS 5E, and we have 2 amplifiers powering the various rooms in the office. We also have an A and B connected to the system, and we're on firmware version 7.1. So on the amplifier config, you can go ahead and name your zones here. You could also name any sources that you're going to use. You can do that here. And once you're done with that, we're really going to want to take a look at the config page of the amplifier. So that's where I'm at now. And this is just the IP address of the amplifier /config. So there's 2 main things that we're going to look at. The first is going to be the zone configuration. So the basic premise of how this driver works, and this is also applicable and simple, is the driver is only going to talk to one amplifier, and all of the commands will be propagated from that amplifier to the others. So what that means is your zone numbers on this tab are important to note, because while this 801 only has 8 zones, the driver can add much more than that. I think it's 40 is the max in the driver. So those additional zones are numbered and designated here in the config page. So on the 401E, we have 3 additional zones here, and these are zone numbers 9, 10, and 11, and that's going to be important later when we set up the driver in Crestron Home. Additionally, we set up a zone group here, and the reason I did that is because in the main area of our office we have 4 channels of speakers. So rather than busing those on a single output, I've created a zone group, so each one is running off its own amplifier channel for 2 zones, a total of 4 channels. But it's one space, the speakers are all in the same room, so we want them to behave as one. We're essentially busing them here. That's what this zone grouping functionality does. You could add other zones to a group. You can link power and volume. In this case, we'll want to link both. And this is configurable for a reason. So in an application like this where all the speakers are together, it's one zone essentially, link power and volume, and you'll be all set. But if these were like adjacent rooms, like a kitchen and a living room, with hold on one second. Is that better, Riggy? And let me know if you guys can read the Crestron Home configuration setup as well, because that's going to be important to see when we get into that. So anyway, linking power and volume is essentially just that. So if you link 2 zones, the only thing they're going to do by default is share the same source. So if one source gets changed on one zone, it'll change on the other zone. But without these links, you can have independent power control and volume control. So in that application where you have a kitchen and a living room, sometimes you might want one zone off, and but you never want to play different things in those rooms because they're right next to each other. And you could also maintain independent volume control like that. So these are good to set up before you go into Crestron Home, and we'll see what that looks like in the configuration of the Crestron Home driver. But essentially, this is going to be invisible, and we're just going to configure this one zone here. And because they're grouped, the main office left will follow any control commands that come from Crestron Home going to the main office. So that's the extent of the zone configuration. You could go ahead and name them here. The naming is not required, but it will just make things a lot more clear as you're setting it up. You could also set up some things like power on volume and things like that here. That's the zone configuration. The source configuration is the second aspect, and this is a really important part. So really what I'm going to be talking about for the first part of this is just the fundamentals of eAudioCast configuration and sources with multiple amplifiers. Because with eAudioCast, you can have sources going into multiple amps. They don't even need to be in the same physical location. And all of those sources are available to all the other amps. So you'll want to, you'll configure that here. And it's fairly straightforward, I think, compared to a lot of the other IP audio setups. So in this scenario, we have the MMS5. So we have the 5 streams, and these auto-populate here. So you should see these generally. These populate the first time a stream is cast to the amplifier. So you can see here the first source is stream 1. That's the main stream. Second is player A, player B. And then I did this here on purpose because I wanted to show you guys something. Like I said, these auto-populate in here, and they populate in the order that they are played, and they take the next available slot. So this ultimately doesn't matter, the fact that the 4th source is stream 5 and vice versa. But if that's bothersome to you, like it is to me, I'll show you how to fix that, and it's very simple. So you can't slide these around like you can the other sources. So instead what you're going to do is you're going to delete both of the sources that are offending. So now we have 1, 2, 3, and the next available source is eAudioCast source 3. So we'll jump over to the MMS web UI, and just to give you guys a quick overview of what we're working with, I've renamed all the streams here in the office. A couple people that listen to music often, so they have their own dedicated stream, and this is a really good practice in the home as well. That way nobody's stepping on each other, and you can individualize the content on each stream. So we have these renamed. So in our case, this is going to be the 4th stream, and this is the 5th stream, Leonard's and mine. We'll go back to the web UI, and it doesn't matter what zone you do it in. We're just going to go ahead and select Leonard's stream, and then we will select my stream. And if we jump back into the amplifier config, you can now see that those have populated, and they've populated in the order that we've selected them. So now we have all our streams in the correct order, nice and neat. Additionally, for this demo, I've created a couple dummy sources that you might see in an application like this. So we're going to have an Apple TV and 2 cable boxes on one of the amplifiers, and then we'll have some legacy audio sources on the second. That's a radio and a record player. These could be anything. Again, naming these is not necessary in here, but it will make things a lot clearer as you're going through the setup, so I definitely recommend that. So just like the zones, all of the source commands go through one amp, and the definition of them in Crestron Home is done by this eAudioCast source number. So we want to make sure any source that we're going to use is defined here. So we have the assigned sources on the right. These are available to be selected through any interface. And then we have the available sources. And so these would not yet be available or selectable in Crestron or any interface for that matter. So like I've said, I've gone and named these, and just to make this extra clear what exactly we're doing here. So here we have the back of the 401. So these are inputs that I've plugged into the back of the 401 here. The Apple TV being on the first, cable box, and the cable box 2. So this cable box 2, S3 here, and the Apple TV. So I physically plug these into the amplifier. Same thing on the 801. I've plugged those physically into the back, these two sources. So I've named them here. And now what we're going to want to do is drag them over. So this is where you see naming really comes in handy. The device number here relates to this ID. So each device, if you had multiple 801s that each have a unique ID, you could identify them with the MAC address, and that is going to tell you which S4 or S5 you're dealing with. So this is the fourth input on ID 4, which is the 401, and then we have ID 7, which is the 801 here. So we're going to go ahead and drag all these sources over into the available source list. Okay. Now we have all our sources. So we have our 5 MMS sources, which are not physically plugged into the amps. This is all over eAudioCast. And then we have our 5 audio sources, or third-party sources here. So we got the Apple TV. And you see each one of these is defined a source number. So at this point, we're ready to jump into Crestron Home. So let's do that. And I just want to make doubly sure that you guys can see this all right. Don't know if I can make this. Nope. All right, so I can scale my screen. If you guys are having a hard time seeing this, just let me know, and I will do that. So this is a pretty fresh install. I reset the processor this morning. I've created our rooms. I've added a few items, most of which in the tech closet. This is just a favorites extension. We'll go over that. So this is what I've added. I've added our uncontrolled sources here. So we got all of the ones we discussed. We'll get to this Autonomic.biz favorite extension later. So there's no MMS and there's no amplifier in this system. So let's get these added. So the MMS is going to be found here. It's going to take a second. We have quite a bit of units in this office. This unit is the office unit. Okay, so that's added to the tech closet, and then we're also going to want to add our amp driver. So this amp driver is soon going to be available just by default in here. For the time being, you can go to cplc.net to download it, and that'll be the latest version on the website. That's going to be found under AV switches. So we're going to give it a name. We're going to enter the IP address of the amplifier, which you can see in the top bar is 14.128. This port, don't change that. That's going to stay the default unless you're doing something funky, which we sometimes do. And then you're not going to need authentication for the amplifier either. So we'll go ahead and add that. And that's the extent of what we need to do here in the pair devices. There is some things we might want to do here if it's populated yet. Yeah, so we can name these to be consistent with our sources here. So we'll leave main as it is. And we have Michelle's. So these names here are basically just display names. They only apply in Crestron Home. But this is what you'll see when you select your sources in a particular room. When you try to play something, you'll see these names propagate in the interface. So you want to make sure to name these a friendly name. Okay, that's done. Yeah, and like I said, that's really all you got to do in here. So now we'll go into pair devices, and or excuse me, the source routes. So go to the 801. I don't think there's nothing really you need to do with the MMS. These will all get carried over when we do the amplifier config. So we'll go on the 801, and we can start with the sources. So here are MMS sources. Stream 1 is main, followed by player A, player B, player C. It's going to be in the same order that they appear in the Autonomic MMS web UI. So those are our sources here. So we'll leave this open, and we'll slide this over so we can see it. So input 1. The main source for the MMS and Crestron Home is going to be this USB generic. And then we'll go through and assign the rest of our MMS sources. So while I'm doing this, guys, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to just leave a comment, and I'll see that and go through it. And maybe I'll have some questions for you, because I am by no means a Crestron Home expert. Doing my best. So then we'll add our dummy sources. So we got the Apple TV. So if you see what I'm doing here, input 6, that's the Apple TV, and you see eAudioCast source 6. And input 7 is going to be cable box 1, and so on. And the record player. So those are our 10 inputs, and you could have many more. eAudioCast supports up to 32 inputs. That's a combination of the MMS sources and physical inputs into the amplifiers. And then next we'll do our rooms. So that's all of our sources. So we got sources on both amplifiers here that we're configuring. We're doing it in one instance of the driver here. Perhaps this wasn't the most descriptive name because this is controlling both the amplifiers, but I think you guys get that. And we'll go over to the zones, get our zone numbers. Let that load. Okay, so it's going to be the same process here, matching the zones to the zone numbers here that we configured. So the reception is going to be zone 1. Conference room. Now here's what I wanted to show you with the zone groups. So main office and main office left, those are grouped already on the amplifier config. So we're not going to worry about main office left, because like I said, that's just going to take all the commands from the main office. So we're going to skip zone 4. No need to do anything with that. And this is Microsoft. So we're going to skip 7 and 8 because these are the pre-amplified outputs of the 801. Zone 7 and 8, so we'll skip those. And we'll fill in the rest of our zones. Okay. So that's that. So now we should in theory be in business. We got our source router, we got our MMS added, and at this point we should be able to jump into the app and play some music. Now my testing, it did take a little bit for that to start working, but we'll just play it by ear. So yeah, so let's just see how that's working now. Okay, we'll go into our rooms. Let's select some audio. Yeah, I did notice when you first add the system, it takes a little bit for the device to settle. Yeah, you can see it's not responding right now. So this is normal. Once it kind of settles itself in, everything should be good. So we'll just let that do its thing, and we'll come back to this in a minute. All right. So what else do I have here on the agenda? So at this point, the system is now configured with the amplifier and the MMS. And for your basic jobs, that's going to be pretty good. You're going to be in pretty good shape. Move on to the next thing. But there's a couple advanced things that we could do here that I wanted to show you guys. So one of which is manipulating the available sources. So as you guys probably know, when you go to select, like you can see here, let when you go select, you see all the services with all of the instances, all the players. So we got mine and Leonard's and Jen's and all this. Well, in my office, I'm only going to be listening to my stream because I'm not going to be, because I don't want to step on anyone else. So a really handy trick is to go here and limit the available sources. And if you go through and take time to click these off, it can really clean up the interface. Like if you have a kid's room or something, don't even allow the parents stream in that room. And once this is done, kind of cleans up the interface a little bit. Additionally, limiting the number of sources that are enabled on the MMS when you add it will speed up that process. So that's something you want to do. Okay, so that's a good one. Cross that off. Disable the content. So let's talk about the favorites driver a little bit. So the favorites driver is for the MMS, and it's really, really powerful. It was initially implemented to add the ability to address presets and favorites, favorited content from quick actions, like from keypads and stuff like that. So that's its primary purpose, but it also adds a nice little, trying to click the app. It adds a nice little tile here where you can browse all your favorites. So let's go ahead and go through what the configuration of that looks like. So what room are we in? We're in this room. So I've gone ahead and added a favorites, and I would do this fresh, but if I delete it, it's going to make me restart the processor, so I'm not going to do that. Your question about the doorbell chimes. So we support doorbell chimes through contact closures on the back of the amplifier. Where was I? So there's some contact closures right here on the right, and you can have them ring a doorbell in a select number of rooms or specific rooms. You can have it do the whole house, and you can adjust the volume for that here. It'll duck the audio, play the doorbell chime, and then resume the audio. That would be done completely outside of Crestron Home and would be done in the amplifier config, and there's some documentation on how to set that up. So going back to the favorites here, when you first add the favorites driver, this is what you're going to be presented with. So you're going to put the MMS IP address in here, and then you're going to put the player. So if you look at my configuration here, you can see this player is MJ's space stream. Well, on the MMS, everything spaces are appended to hyphens in the protocol, and that's what this is interacting with. So any space that you have in your instance, replace that with a hyphen. And as we get into some more advanced stuff here, I would also encourage you guys to get comfortable in Telnet. It's really simple to use, and that will allow you to play around with some of the protocol commands that we're going to talk about in a way that can be done outside of the control system. So you can experiment with them and see what they're going to do. So one of the commands that I use often is browse instances. And you can see here the list of instances, and this is how you want to put them in Crestron Home. So MJ stream, that's how it's entered there. The control username and password, that would be if you have that configured on the MMS web UI, which in this case we do not. So that can be left blank. Then you could have the option to show this tile, the tile that I'm showing here, in the room that you added into, or on the home screen. And in this instance, I have it added on both. The reason this is an option is because this favorites extension adds a lot of functionality even if you don't use the tile. The tile was kind of just something we added in at the end, but like I said, we originally did this to be able to add custom commands and to be able to recall presets. So you can choose to do this or not. In this case, we'll leave it. And then I also have some custom commands here, which in this case we're not going to use them on this one, but it's not going to hurt anything if we leave it, so I'll leave that. But I'll show you a more concrete example of how I use those custom commands in a little bit. So that's all you got to do here. The important things to note is you need a instance of this favorite extension in each room that you want the tile. and for each stream that you want to control. So in my office, I have it connected to my stream. In the main area, I might use main, or a generalized stream. A good practice that I think is really handy when you're installing a system in a home is to have a stream per person, and then also have like a whole house stream. So if someone goes into a room and wants to do their own thing, they have their own dedicated stream, but general use throughout the house on an everyday basis, you can use like the main house stream. So that's a good way of doing it. That's how we do it here in the office as well. So yeah, so if you wanted this in different rooms, you would add a whole nother instance of this favorite extension, and we could go through and do that. So we'll do that in the reception area where Michelle likes to hang out. So this extension is going to be found under drivers, and it's going to be found under media player, and this is already uploaded, so that you'll see this on all your configs without have to sideload it. And we'll add it, and we'll say Michelle's favorites. So we're going to put the IP address in, and we'll go back here to look at the exact instance name, which is Michelle's stream with an underscore. Okay, and that's all we got to do, and we'll show that in the room screen. And these you could just leave blank if you're not using them. Don't worry, some people get tripped up and say, oh, what am I supposed to put in here? These would be protocol commands, which are documented, and I'll share that with you guys. So that's what you put in there, but if you don't know what you want to do with that, just leave blank. It's not going to hurt nothing. So now we've gone ahead and added that. So if we go into our app, we go to the reception, see it there, and sure enough, there it is. So if we go and play something here, you're going to notice that the feedback here says playing. However, the room is still off. And that's because there's an extra step that you got to take. So all this favorite extension does is tell the MMS play this favorite. It doesn't know to turn on the room, or at least Crestron Home doesn't know to turn on the room. So we need to tell it to do that. And the way you do that is over in Actions and Events. And you'll go to the reception. Then you'll see this additional item in any of the rooms that you've added. So you can select that and hit the selected button. That means like a favorite has been selected. So whenever a favorite has been selected, these actions will occur. And what you want to do is you want to do a media function, and you want to do that in the room. And what we want to do is we want to select any service from the applicable stream. So we've set this up for Michelle's stream. So we just want to select any service. And it doesn't actually matter which one. Crestron will switch to the appropriate service when the MMS switches to it. It just needs to be any of these services on the same stream that we've configured the extension for. So this is going to be Michelle's. And that's that. So once that's done, now we should be able to come into the room, and the room's off. And if we select a piece of content, you turn the room on for us, and you can see that it has. So now Michelle's My Music has turned on, and we can see that there's going to be some feedback here. It's going to take a second for the Sirius XM to load, and then it will all be good. This should update to say Sirius XM in a second here. And another good practice while you guys are kind of testing things out would be to go into the web UI here and just verify it's doing what it does. That's always a good sanity check. So we can see here that the content has started playing. It's in Michelle's room, and everything appears to be working as it should be. We have we're not getting metadata here. I'm not sure why that is. This typically does work, but it might work if we change the content. We'll have to see. But the music's playing, and that is what's important. We got that going. So now, when you come into this room and the room's off, you will be able to just go into your favorites, select a favorite, and get it playing. And that's really handy. Some additional functionality that you could get to that is creating a quick action, and this is where it becomes really powerful. So let's say you have a keypad, like a physical keypad in the room, and you want to be able to have the customer's favorite content on those keypad buttons. So this extension makes all the favorites found in here accessible via quick actions. So what we'll do is we'll go into the quick actions. And I've already added one of these in my room as well, so we'll do it there. So we'll go to quick actions, and we'll add a new one, and we'll say CNBC. And then we're going to create a sequence, and that sequence is going to be essentially turning on or recalling the favorites. So we'll go into MMS favorites, and we're going to recall a favorite, and we're going to recall CNBC. Then additionally, what we want to do, so everything works smoothly, is route the source. So we're going to say this source should be MJ's Sirius XM right here. So we're recalling the favorite. So all this is doing is playing the favorite on the MMS. Now we got to tell it we want to play it in this room. We want this input routed to this room. Then lastly, we want to turn the room on. And now this quick action should do all of those things. Come over here, and whoops. Let me go to my room, and you can see that the room has turned on. It's got CNBC going, and that's all you got to do. That's great. That works. So this is really powerful. Now you can use quick actions to add that to keypad buttons or any other kind of macros that you might be doing to recall content. This was really requested, so we're glad we're able to offer it this. And there's some other things that I was playing around with that I think would be really, really handy, and this is what ties into the into those customized commands. So I have another instance of the favorites driver. I put this one in the tech closet, and this one I chose to hide because all I'm doing with this one is using it to send commands to the MMS. So the way I've set it up is I have the IP address, I have it connected to my stream, and then I have it hidden. I guess I do have it shown on the room screen, but that is not necessary, and we'll turn that off. And here I have two custom commands. So we have the descriptor, that's basically just the name that it appears as, and I'll show you what that looks like in the interface. So if we go down to the tech closet, you can see we have these two things. I've actually created quick actions for those as well. So those won't appear by default, but you'll put in the command. So what I did here was I have a, these are protocol commands. These are commands that can be entered in Telnet or that are documented in our help documentation, which you guys should definitely take a look at. So this is where it's documented, and some of the most handy stuff here has to do with presets. This is applicable and simple as well. So you can store a preset with a name, and you can recall the preset. In this case, it's the party time preset. Over here, what I've done is I've created a preset called Keypad 1. So I have one button that will store a preset called Keypad 1, and that's going to store whatever's currently playing. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's an Apple Music playlist or a Sirius XM station or TuneIn or local music. Whatever is currently playing and in the queue will be stored as that preset. And then I've created another command here to recall that preset. And the reason I've done it like this, as opposed to creating a quick action that recalls the favorite like we did previously with CNBC, is because this allows the user to now customize their keypad buttons without having to go into the configurator in a very simple way. So first step is to create these commands. We'll apply those changes. The next step is to go into the quick actions, go into the tech closet, and we'll look at these two things that I've done. So I'll just remake one of these. So we'll call it store keypad preset 1. And it's going to be a sequence. It's going to be a sequence. We're going to go into the tech closet, and we're going to go to MMS commands, which is the name of this favorite extension that I've created. We're going to go to execute commands. And now these are the two commands that we defined in the favorites extension. So you can have up to 10 of these, and you can have multiple instances of the favorite extension, and that will show you, and that will be populated here. So this is the store keypad preset. So all we're doing is just creating a button that does that. And I've created the recall keypad preset for demonstration purposes. This would typically be a physical button on a keypad, but this will just show what I'm doing here. So now that that's done, if we look over here, so we got content playing, and what we could do is if we come over here and we press store keypad preset, that's going to go ahead and store the content that's currently playing on my stream into this preset called keypad preset 1. So now any quick action, any keypad button that is tied to that preset will now recall the content that we've just stored. So that's really powerful. So you can create a room like a tech closet or a preset room or something like that and put a bunch of these quick actions in there. And that way your customer, if they want to change a button on their keypad, they just got to get the content playing, come over here and press that store button, and now all of those keypads will be updated. That's pretty neat. So now if something else was playing here, like if we had some Apple Music going, we got Apple Music going, and if we go ahead and press the recall preset button, it's going to now recall what we were just playing, which in this case was Sirius XM CNBC. So that's pretty cool. So this recall quick action here can be set up in much the same way as we set up the previous one. So you can add additional items here, such as turning on rooms. You could go over here, go to media operations, and we're going to do route. We're going to route Sirius XM, and we're going to turn the room on. And you can do that for multiple rooms. Let's say you wanted a quick action to turn on 2 different rooms. We can come over here and we want to turn on the kitchen, and the same deal. We'll add that route. And we'll turn the room on. So now that keypad button will get the content playing, and then it's going to route it to my office and the kitchen, all with one button. Really handy. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Some additional notes, how I set that up. You'll see here that if you look closely, the name of the preset that I have in parentheses here is preceded by a period. So it's quotes, period, keypad 1, end quotes. That period there makes it a hidden preset. For all intents and purposes, it behaves exactly the same as a regular preset. The only difference is it doesn't show up in the favorites. If we go to the favorites here, you can see that there's no preset shown called keypad 1, but because we know the protocol, we can do browse all presets, and you can see right here the preset does in fact exist, and it's named .keypad1. So that is that's a good trick to keep kind of procedural presets like this from bloating your favorites list. That's really handy. So yeah, at this point we're in pretty good shape. We can now go back. This system should be settled by now. We can go into my room, turn it off. You can see the feedback here on the amplifier updates. If we go back to my room, let's say we want to play something, go to my Apple Music, Why is this not? So it seems like no browse feedback is coming back. I've been messing with this system all day, so it's quite possible. Yeah, I'm getting some errors here. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot the MMS. Always a good idea once you've configured everything to go ahead and reboot the system. Give it a clean start after everything's been configured. Matthias, glad you can make it, buddy. Yes, this video will be available later. So you guys can go back and review it if you have any questions. Is there anything you guys would like me to go over in addition to this? We've got the favorites extension, we've got the amp configuration, configuring the amp on the actual amp config page. This is definitely an important part of the process. You want to make sure that this gets done. And that's what I got. So we'll wait for this MMS to come back and make sure everything's working as it should be. Make sure you guys are adding your MMSs to DealerZone. That's going to be very handy. Remotely manage your devices. If you guys aren't set up on DealerZone, just let me know, and I'd be happy to help you out. So here we have the graveyard of devices. And but yeah, it's really nice. You can come over here and check the firmware version, make sure it's up to date, and make sure we're all good. If you guys aren't set up already on Autonomic.biz, this is our new e-commerce platform. You could purchase items directly on here. Click here to sign up if you haven't already. It's real quick, get you approved. Once you are signed in, you'll have access to some additional documentation, price lists, drivers, support documents, trade-in programs, and other programs that we're running, like the A&B promotion. Okay, so it looks like our MMS is back online. And here we go. We got everything we need. We got some Apple Music. And it does take a second for the Apple Music stuff to load once the servers reboot. So this was a good ad hoc demonstration. Let everything get settled here, and we should be in pretty good shape. But yeah, it looks like the browser's back. Come over here to Spotify. That's going to be quicker to load. So what's really cool is if, like with that keypad command, let's say you're listening to one of these Spotify playlists, and you're like, yeah, this rocks. This is really sweet. You can now, as an end user, you could go into your tech closet and save this as a preset. And just like that, now all your keypads are updated to play this content. So that's really, really nice functionality to implement. Yeah, setting up your available sources is really nice. Just kind of cleans up the interface, get rid of the stuff you don't need. And I think that's that. It's pretty quick. Got a full system up and running in less than an hour. That's pretty good in my book. Now you guys got to do all the lighting and shades and other stuff you guys do, I suppose. And that's what I got. So I don't see any more questions coming in. I think I'll cap this off in just a minute or so if nothing else comes in. I'm glad you guys could join me today. I think these informal kind of presentations might be helpful. Get them out a little more frequently. Go over stuff that the community is asking, and really happy that I was able to do this for you guys today. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. We got our Apple Music. I'm gonna do it with a little yacht rock. How about that? So I don't know if you guys saw this. I had another quick action that I guess I could go over as well. See, there's still some people here. So this is a quick action that will just place CNBC in this room. So I have this in my office. So it's going to pop up right on the top there, and I'll show you how I made that. Very similar process to what we've gone over already. And it's just that, yeah. So I'm recalling the SiriusXM preset that I've created already. That's in the favorites extension. I'm routing it, turning the room on. You could do stuff like that on the whole house area as well. So I have it all off. Quick action just turns the room off, but you could also create one that would play content like CNBC. So here we'll go into any room that has the favorites extension. And we'll get CNBC going. And then we can do the same process of routing the source and turning the room on for each room that we want configured for that. Toby, no Apple Music stations yet at the moment, but we do support playlists, the For You content, and I could go through that real quick and show you exactly what you get in Crestron Home. So this is the top level menu of Apple Music in Crestron Home with an Autonomic MMS and A&B. You can select multiple accounts here. In this instance, we only have one A&B, but you can add many accounts to the system, and you can play two per A&B essentially. You have the ability to search. You could search any of the content in Apple Music's catalog. You have top charts, For You content, and then your playlist, artist, albums, and songs that are in your own library. That's really nice because it eliminates the need for using the sync tool. Now, if you have an iTunes library, you can add your Apple Music content and not have to bother with the sync tool and make sure that's running on a computer. Alrighty guys, thanks again for coming. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys took something out of it. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We can go through the nuances of your particular install, and maybe we'll both learn something from that. I'm always learning from the unique solutions that dealers are providing, so I really appreciate that feedback and enjoy helping you guys out. Thanks again for coming. I'm going to close it down now. My email is michaelj@autonomiccontrols.com. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me there or give us a call. All our information is on our website right here at the bottom. Make sure you join us at CEDIA, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you very much. Take care.